Before we begin, I must warn you, what you are about to hear is not easy. It is not comforting. It will not fit into the modern narratives about love, gender, or equality. It may even make you uncomfortable, angry, defensive. But if you have the courage to listen, really listen, you may see something that most men will never dare to face. And if you do, if these words awaken something in you, subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment below, because this is not just about philosophy. It is about freedom. And there are other men, right now, who need to know they are not alone. Now, let us begin. Friedrich Nietzsche, philosopher of the abyss, poet of the eternal return, the man who wrote, "He who fights with monsters should be careful, lest he thereby become a monster." But there is one part of Nietzsche's thought that remains buried, ignored, or distorted by modern minds: his brutal insight into the nature of women. Not the shallow quotes you've seen misused on the internet, not the angry distortions from modern ideologues, but the deeper truth that he saw, and which terrified the world, that the feminine is not what you want it to be. And if you do not face this truth, it will break you. In Beyond Good and Evil, Nietzsche wrote, "When you go to women, do not forget the whip." This quote is infamous, misunderstood, often weaponized by those who wish to paint Nietzsche as a misogynist. But what did he really mean? Not literal violence, not crude domination. The whip is a metaphor for power, for sovereignty, for the masculine force that must remain awake in the presence of the feminine, or be destroyed by it. Nietzsche saw that most men do not approach women with strength. They approach with hunger, with need, with projection, and this is their doom. Because the feminine, in its raw, ancient form, does not love weakness. It devours it. Consider this. Have you ever watched a man fall for a woman and lose himself? It starts innocently. He is drawn to her beauty, her charm, her softness. He wants to please her, to prove himself, to win her heart. At first, she responds with curiosity, with warmth. But as he gives more, he loses balance. He sacrifices his center. He puts her on a pedestal. And soon, her respect fades. Her desire fades. Her warmth turns to coldness. The more he chases, the faster she runs. The more he offers, the less she values. Why? Because he has abandoned his power, and in doing so, he has become unworthy of her deepest instinct. Nietzsche understood this brutal dynamic. He saw that the feminine is not evil, but instinctive. It responds to strength. It recoils from submission. And yet, the modern man is taught to submit, to appease, to worship. And in doing so, he signs his own death warrant in the eyes of the feminine. Let me tell you about Martin. Martin was 33, a kind man, a loyal man, intelligent, thoughtful, and deeply lonely. When he met Clara, something awakened in him. She was beautiful, witty, mysterious. He felt alive for the first time in years, and so he pursued, gently, respectfully, doing everything modern culture tells men to do. Be supportive, be sensitive, be safe. He listened. He gave. He prioritized her above himself. And at first, it seemed to work. They dated, grew close. But slowly, something shifted. Clara grew distant, irritable, less affectionate. Martin, confused, tried harder. More gifts, more time, more affection. But the more he gave, the colder she became. Until one day, she left. Her words? "I just don't feel that spark anymore." Martin was devastated. But I treated her so well, he thought. I gave her everything. And that was the problem. Nietzsche would say, "He who bows too deeply to the goddess is crushed beneath her feet." Here's the first harsh truth Nietzsche saw. The more you place her above yourself, the less worthy you become. Because the feminine instinct, ancient, unconscious, seeks strength, not obedience, not devotion. A man without sovereignty, without that whip, is not a man in her eyes. But why is this truth so dangerous? Why does no one teach it? Because it reveals a paradox at the heart of modern relationships. What women say they want and what they instinctively desire are not the same. They may tell you they want sensitivity, gentleness, vulnerability, but they respond only with deepest attraction to strength, to groundedness, to masculine power that does not seek their approval. And here is the trap. If you believe only their words, you will act against their instincts, and you will fail again and again and again. Nietzsche saw this hypocrisy in his own time, over a century ago, and he warned, do not be deceived by the surface. The truth lies beneath, in instinct, not intention. And so I ask you, how many times have you believed the surface? How many times have you chased love through obedience and been abandoned? How many times have you bowed to an ideal only to be broken by reality? It is time to awaken. The feminine is not your enemy, but she is not your savior. She is nature. She is instinct. She is test. And unless you meet her from your own center, with your own power intact, you will not win her respect. You will not win her heart. You will not win yourself. In Nietzsche's eyes, there was a deeper danger still. Not merely that men misunderstand women, but that they misunderstand desire itself. What is desire? Modern thought tells you it is about love, about connection, about mutual fulfillment. But Nietzsche saw something darker beneath it. He believed that all desire, both male and female, is rooted in one thing, the will to power, not in the crude sense of domination, but in the deeper sense, the will to impose one's being upon the world, to expand, to control, to absorb. And in this light, feminine desire becomes something far more complex and far more dangerous than modern men realize. Nietzsche wrote, when a woman loves, she desires not merely the man, but his power, to make it hers, to make him hers. Think about that. Most men believe that when a woman falls in love, she desires him, his kindness, his heart, his true self. But Nietzsche saw through this illusion. He understood she does not desire the man alone. She desires his strength, his power, his life force. And if he gives it too easily, if he offers it without challenge, the desire dies. Because her instinct does not seek what is surrendered. It seeks what must be earned. Have you ever seen this? A man wins a woman. He woos her, marries her, gives her all of himself, his time, his attention, his devotion. And over time, her desire fades. She becomes cold, withdrawn, bored. Why? Because she has nothing left to conquer, nothing left to test, no edge to her man. He has given himself away, and in doing so, he has made himself small in her eyes. Nietzsche saw that feminine instinct is not drawn to comfort. It is drawn to challenge, to strength, to mystery, to the man who does not need her, but who chooses her. Let me tell you about Alex. Alex was 38, successful, confident, attractive to women, but after years of dating, he was tired. He wanted peace, a calm relationship, no more games. Then he met Julia, elegant, intelligent, strong-willed. At first, he was magnetic. She chased him, admired him, respected him. But after a few months, Alex changed. He began to soften, to accommodate, to avoid conflict. He wanted harmony at all costs. He let small things slide, stopped leading, stopped challenging. Slowly, Julia's respect faded. Her attraction cooled, until one day, she left. Her parting words, I don't know what happened. You used to be so alive. Nietzsche would say, he who sacrifices his will for love loses both. This is the second harsh truth Nietzsche saw, that the feminine does not desire a man who needs her. She desires a man who stands apart, sovereign, untamed. But modern men are taught the opposite. They are taught to compromise endlessly, to apologize for their masculinity, to be safe, to be predictable, to be pleasers. And in doing so, they kill the very force that attracts the feminine, because beneath the social masks, the feminine instinct remains ancient. It seeks the man who cannot be controlled, the man who leads without seeking permission, the man who challenges her, not from cruelty, but from strength, the man who forces her to rise to meet him. Nietzsche saw that this is why so many modern relationships collapse, because the man has been trained to betray his own nature, to surrender his will, to become soft, agreeable, harmless. And in doing so, he becomes invisible to the feminine. You may think, but that sounds harsh. That's not love. Nietzsche would answer, love is not what you were taught. It is a battlefield of instincts, where only the strong thrive. If you want comfort, you will lose her desire. If you want peace, you will lose her passion. If you want harmony above all, you will lose yourself. Because the feminine, at her core, is fire, and fire is drawn to strength, not to weakness. The man who keeps his edge, who refuses to surrender his will, then remains magnetic. He does not beg. He does not appease. He does not apologize for his power. And because of this, the feminine respects him, desires him, fears him in the right way. Nietzsche understood this instinct, and he warned, beware the woman who seeks to soften you, for once soft, you are no longer desired. And so I ask you, how many times have you given away your strength in the name of love? How many times have you softened yourself only to be abandoned? How many times have you lost her desire by trying to win her approval? It is time to see clearly. She does not want your submission. She does not want your worship. She wants your strength, your will, your unbroken self. There is a deeper layer to all of this, one so uncomfortable, so taboo, that even most philosophers avoid it. But Nietzsche, in his brutal honesty, did not look away. He saw that in every man-woman dynamic beneath the surface of love and romance, there is a darker force at play, resentment. The feminine, when confronted with unbroken masculinity, feels both attraction and fear. Attraction to the strength, fear of losing control, and when fear wins, it often turns to resentment. Nietzsche wrote, woman admires what she cannot conquer, but if it remains unconquered too long, she begins to hate. Think about that. Most men believe, if I am strong, confident, sovereign, she will always love me. But Nietzsche saw the paradox. The very traits that attract her most are the ones she may eventually seek to destroy. Why? Because deep in the feminine instinct is an ancient tension. She desires the man who stands above her instincts, but her own instinct seeks to pull him down, to make him safe, to make him manageable. You've seen this. The man who begins a relationship full of masculine energy, strong boundaries, clear direction, purpose beyond her. At first, she is drawn in, aroused, challenged, but as time passes, she begins to test him. Small criticisms, emotional games, attempts to make him justify himself. And if he resists, holds his ground, she respects him more and fears him more. And sometimes, when fear outweighs attraction, resentment is born. Nietzsche saw this cycle in countless relationships. The stronger the man, the deeper the tests. Because at the core of the feminine instinct is this question: can I trust his strength, or must I tame him? And if she cannot tame him, if he remains unmoved by her storms, part of her loves him more, but another part resents what she cannot control. Let me tell you about Daniel. Daniel was 41, a successful entrepreneur, grounded, purpose-driven, no longer needy. When he met Isabel, she was captivated. "You're so different," she said. "You're so steady. I feel safe around you." For months, the relationship burned bright. But then, the tests began. Small provocations, passive-aggressive comments, attempts to trigger jealousy. Daniel did not bite. He remained calm, detached, focused on his purpose. At first, this deepened her attraction. But slowly, resentment grew. "Why don't you react?" she asked. "Why don't you fight for me?" The truth: Daniel was not going to be dragged into her storms. He would not surrender his center. And in time, Isabel left, not because she stopped desiring him, but because she could not control him. Nietzsche would say, "The woman who cannot master the man must either rise or flee." This is the third harsh truth Nietzsche saw, that masculine sovereignty will always be tested, and sometimes hated. The modern man does not understand this. He believes, if I'm strong, she will never leave. But strength is not a guarantee of loyalty. It is a guarantee of truth, the truth of who she really is, of what she can handle. of what she is ready for. And here is the paradox. The man who compromises to keep her loses both her desire and her respect. The man who refuses to compromise may lose her, but keeps himself. Nietzsche believed this is the true mark of the masculine, to hold his center even if it costs him the woman. Because the man who bends, the man who pleases, the man who trades power for peace becomes despised. But the man who stands, alone if necessary, is free. And so I ask you, how many times have you bent to avoid her resentment? How many times have you sacrificed your truth to keep her happy? How many times have you betrayed yourself and lost her anyway? It is time to stop. You are not here to be loved at any price. You are here to be sovereign. If you've listened this far, you are already different from most men. Because most will not face these truths. They will turn away, cling to their illusions, choose comfort over clarity. But Nietzsche would say, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. And so it is with this truth about women and about yourself. There comes a moment in every man's life, if he is lucky, when he finally awakens. When he sees that the love he chased was a lie, that the approval he begged for was poison, that the woman he worshipped was never the answer. This is the death of the boy and the birth of the man. Most never reach this point. They remain trapped, worshiping women, seeking their approval, trading their power for fleeting affection, betraying their truth for scraps of love. And when they are discarded, as they always are, they collapse, not because of her, but because they never stood as men. Nietzsche called this the great inversion. When man ceases to seek woman's love, he becomes worthy of it. When he ceases to need, he becomes desired. The modern man is trained to be the opposite, to seek, to need, to bend, and so he fails. But the man who awakens, who faces the truths we've spoken here, who stops chasing, becomes dangerous. Not to women, but to the system that kept him blind, to the illusions that enslaved him. Let me tell you about Victor. Victor was 44, 2 failed marriages, years of heartbreak. He had done everything right, listened, gave, loved with all his heart. And every time, he was left, cold, empty, bitter, until one night, after reading Nietzsche for hours, something inside him snapped. Not in anger, not in despair, in clarity. I have lived as a servant, he wrote, no more. From that moment, Victor stopped seeking, stopped apologizing, stopped trying to win love. He began living for himself, building strength, purpose, boundaries, and in time, something strange happened. Women began chasing him, not because he sought them, but because he no longer needed them. Because he had become sovereign. Nietzsche saw this again and again. The man who walks alone draws the world to him, because he radiates what cannot be faked: power, freedom, truth. And here's the paradox. When you stop needing love, you become worthy of it. When you stop chasing her, she chases you. When you stop bending, she rises to meet you. But this only happens if you are willing to lose everything first. Most men will not do this. They are too afraid to be alone, afraid to lose approval, afraid to lose her, and so they stay weak, and they suffer. But the few, the rare few who awaken, who reclaim their will, they become what Nietzsche called the man beyond good and evil, the master of himself. And so I ask you, are you ready to stop chasing, to stop bending, to stop needing, to become sovereign? Because once you do, everything changes. Before we begin this final section, if what you've heard so far has shaken you, if it has put words to things you've felt but never dared to say aloud, then subscribe to this channel. Leave a comment, not for me, but for yourself, for the other men watching, because your voice might be the one that wakes another man from the same nightmare. Now, let us finish. There is one last truth, one Nietzsche knew, one that few will speak, even now. You were lied to from childhood. In every movie, every love song, every romantic myth, you were told, if you love her purely, she will love you. If you give her your heart, she will cherish it. If you treat her as your queen, She will be your queen forever. And when this failed, again and again, you blamed yourself. I wasn't good enough. I didn't give enough. I need to try harder. No, you were simply chasing an illusion, a story that was never true. Nietzsche saw through this lie. He who seeks love at the cost of his own will find neither. And this is the greatest tragedy of modern men. They spend their lives trying to be good enough for women instead of becoming great enough for themselves. What happens to such a man? He becomes small, empty, lost. He loses the respect of women and, worse, of himself. You see them everywhere. The man who has traded his power for comfort. The man who has dulled his edge for peace. The man who apologizes for his desires, his strength, his nature. And these men are invisible to women, to the world, to themselves. Because the feminine instinctively does not admire sacrifice. She admires sovereignty. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus was 52, wealthy, successful, divorced twice. Years spent bending, pleasing, giving, and in return, abandonment, betrayal, contempt. One night, alone in his penthouse, glass of whiskey in hand, he read Nietzsche. And this line hit him like a hammer. Man's greatest lie is that he is not enough without woman. For hours, Marcus sat in silence, and then he decided no more. He stopped dating, stopped seeking, stopped chasing. He turned inward, built his body, sharpened his mind, rekindled his mission, and slowly, the hunger faded. Not the desire for women, but the need for them. And when that need died, everything changed. Women began to notice him again. But this time, he did not bend, did not chase, did not seek approval. He chose. Nietzsche called this the dance of the free man, whose steps no woman can predict. This is true freedom, when you no longer seek her love, but offer yours freely from a place of strength. When you no longer ask, "Am I good enough?" but live as a man who knows, "I am enough, with or without her." And here is the final paradox. When you no longer need her, she wants you more. When you no longer chase, she follows. When you no longer bend, she rises. But even if she doesn't, you remain whole, because the awakened man knows no woman can give you your worth. No love can give you your meaning. You must build it, forge it, live it. And when you do, you become untouchable. Nietzsche believed this is the destiny of the highest man, to be master of himself, and through this, of the world. So I ask you, here and now, are you ready to stop chasing shadows? To stop trading your power for affection? To stop betraying yourself for love? To walk alone if needed, and through this, become sovereign? Because the world will not give you this freedom. No woman will hand it to you. No system will reward it. You must take it. And once you do, you will never bow again. Not to her, not to anyone, not to the lie.